one. Yeah, I recently went to the coast here in Bangkok. Went to a place called Bang Sen, which is in a province called Chonburi. And one thing that I've started to notice with the younger generation, especially those in the sort of late adolescent years and those in their early 20s, early to mid 20s, is that there's this prevalence now of young people wanting to take over any kind of spots that they're deemed to be social media worthy. Have you noticed that? I don't know if it's just me, but we've just sat there next to the beach, or what was a kind of makeshift beach, kind of a restaurant type thing. And I could see the impatience in these people that were kind of sitting behind us. I was just sort of just every now and again sort of glancing over just to kind of see if I was right the first time about them wanting, just kind of checking to see if they want to kind of come here in the area that I was sitting in to take pictures and videos of. And yeah, I don't know, it just really bothered me really. I'm just so tired of seeing this, this entitlement, this narcissism playing out all the time everywhere you go now. Anywhere that there's a spot where, they think they'll think it'll make, they're so obsessed with themselves now. This, it used to be just that you used to just go somewhere to take pictures just for the sake of taking pictures because you found whatever you were taking a picture of interesting, and you wanted to look back at it again later on. But I just feel now that we're in this very disposable area where everything's just kind of taken for granted, and nobody really, for the most part, certainly the younger generation, nobody seems to really truly appreciate just living in the moment. They're just looking for their next Instagram picture, their next Instagram story, their next Facebook profile picture, their next 10-second long TikTok reel, whatever. And I could just see that. I could see this sort of this entitlement written all over the faces. There was a couple of young people sat behind me at the restaurant in Bang Sen, and I could just see them looking at it. They think to themselves probably, or they had that kind of look of you're past it, get out of the way. It's ours now. It's our space now. You're not the younger generation anymore. This sense of you're finished, you're done. Nobody cares about you anymore. It's all about us now. It's all about our vanity. And that's essentially what social media's become about, isn't it? It's just extreme vanity. It's just people that are so desperate to be liked, so desperate to be seen, so desperate to get some engagement, to get some attention from people. And I think mostly though, I have to admit, and again, I'm not as I say, I'm not generalising, I'm not stereotyping, I'm not trying to be sexist here, but just based on my observations, it's primarily women that are doing it. The amount of times that I've seen in the last couple of years, You know, you go somewhere and you just see, you see someone with one of those long stand things that they have for the one of those like lights that they have for, you see them on like Facebook or lives when people are selling things, and there's like this like setup, kind of like this typical sort of like basic series sort of setup that people have on YouTube for talking or whatever, and filming, and you just see it all over the place now. It's just become, social media it's just become such a such a deranged place these days. I almost kind of hate it, honestly. It's just become such a hedonistic place. It's just become such a complex web of capitalism and competition, attention, narcissism, you name it. It's just become so toxic. But what I cannot stand is this sense of this arrogance, this, like I said, this sense of entitlement that so many people seem to have now, where it's like, if you're in a spot that they want to take a picture of, they've got those like passive aggressive eyes, like a passive aggressive look on their face, like, they smile at you, but you can see it in their eyes. They're basically telling you, can you please move? You're past it. No one cares what you know. No one wants to see your pictures. Blah blah blah. That kind of thing. It's like it's all about us. It's all about me and my, getting 250,000 followers on TikTok, or 1,000, just a couple of thousand people subscribe to their YouTube channels. Like, see, I don't make my videos for subscribers necessarily. I don't make not that I have any anyway, let's face it. But, I don't make my videos really, if I'm being honest with you, for other people. I know that sounds kind of a bit contradictory. But what I mean by that is I don't, my obligation really is just to put out my own opinions, my own thoughts, and that's it really. And if other people happen to find that something I've said is true to them, is holds some weight, then that's great. And if people feel the need to comment or like one of my videos every now and again, that's great. But ultimately, I don't, my channel isn't monetized. I haven't got anything to gain out of this. I'm not doing it for other people. Whereas I think, of course, of course, in the back of your head, you do like, the idea of people commenting and liking, but I'm just finding more and more that I just prefer to keep the comments off, because it just spirals into arguments and pettiness and just keyboard warriors and just general kind of unpleasantness. And so I just, in the end, I just personally prefer to keep my comments off, because it's just nothing but trouble otherwise. It's not because I can't argue back with certain things people say, or I'm not going to like certain things. It's nothing to do with that. It's just that I just don't have the time for it, and I can't be dealing with that level of drama all the time. If you find the video interesting, convincing, or accurate, or persuasive, or I don't know, or you just agree, you agree with me, you think what I say is pretty much spot on, then give the video a like. Give me a comment if you want to, but at the end of the day, you don't have to. There's no obligation for you to do that, and I don't need you to like it or comment. I'm just saying, if you want to, you can. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really bother me. It's like, and I've got no skin in the game when it comes to social media. That's why it doesn't bother me. But with these types of people that I've been talking about, they do. They've got something to lose by not keeping up with the real game of engagement and validation and overblown egos and just toxic, really toxic people, just people just being allowed to be toxic. And that's the thing is that social media kind of like pushes this sense that it's okay to be hedonistic and degrading and objectifying yourself or glorifying certain things or just generally being a pretty repulsive individual. And it doesn't really matter in many ways to these social media platforms, because as long as you're getting engagement, you're getting enough likes and enough comments, that brings in the money if your channel's monetized, as long as you're not going to the absolute extremes. And I just find it all really sickening, actually, because there was just a time where you just used to go out your house and you weren't like worried about ending up on someone's camera reel or in someone's video, but now you do, because we've become such a distrusting society now that we don't trust especially with what's happened with Facebook in recent years, with issues of data privacy. I think people just seem a bit more wary, and I think it's just generally just more kind of suspicious vibe to just society in general these days, as far as I can see. It just feels like just nobody really likes each other anymore. No one seems to trust each other. Everyone's suspicious of each other's actions, even if they're trying to do something good. Even like morals and ethics are questioned now, and I don't know, just everything just seems to be up in the air. Like nobody seems to like just want to believe that there's any hope left in humanity. It's like, I do, but I can see why people feel like that. When you look around and you go out into the real world outside and you deal with people for long enough and you face enough situations, and you're just like, this is just not for me. I just don't want to be. I just don't want to be a part of the system anymore. I don't agree with it. I don't like it necessarily in many ways. And it's just turning more and more people, especially the more attractive ones. I think it's like, generally speaking, I would say the more good-looking guys, the more good-looking women out there are definitely leveraging the opportunities from social media, that's for sure, especially young women. And I think it's just fueling this like toxicity. It's fueling toxic femininity. It's fueling a divide in society. It's fueling a sense of distrust and just shock and shame and embarrassment. And you just think to yourself, do these people's parents know what they do? Do their friends even know what they're doing online? And so many times now as well, when you go out there and you just see so many people stuck on the phones like all the time, like literally the whole time that I've seen it so many times over here, and I assume it's probably very similar pretty much everywhere else for the most part. You see these groups of young guys or girls, or a mixture of the two, and you just see them just sitting there, wherever you've gone to eat or wherever it is, just sitting. Maybe you're in a park, maybe you're in a shopping centre, maybe you're at some local restaurant, whatever it is. You just see them there, just like, pretty much a lot of them, most of the time, just staring at the phones, just so engrossed are they in their need for validation and attention that it trumps the real world. That's the problem. It's social media is becoming such an entity that people, I think, I don't know if I'm right here, but it seems to me that like more and more people are just more engrossed in the world of online attention than they are actually in real life. It's like they like living this like in between like state. They seem to like this kind of, or they kind of, I don't know what it's all about. It sometimes just feels like they just don't seem to be able to handle like sitting next to each other, looking each other in the eyes, actually having a conversation. I just feel that we're really starting to lose the art of being present, the art of just talking to one another in person, in a respectful and mature way, and without it resorting into sarcasm and passive aggressiveness and petty remarks and all sorts of toxicity. I just don't understand sometimes. I don't understand. I don't know why it's become as popular as it has, really. But I suppose, I guess, it's really been, I think, in many ways, really a multiple generational issue. Really, I think people are really, in many ways, people are indirectly responsible for it, because how many of us jumped on the bandwagon of Facebook in the late 2000s to early 2010s. How many of us jumped on the Instagram bandwagon, YouTube, and obviously later on TikTok. We've all played our part in this whole thing. We've all, even if we didn't mean any harm by it, we've all bought into this system of pushing attention towards certain people by engaging with their channels, by liking their channels, by commenting on them. And so, inadvertently, I think we've unintentionally we've caused the very problems that we now see, we now hate, or dislike. I think we're all responsible for it in our own small little indirect or indirect ways, I suppose. It's just so many things now on Facebook, because I've just clogged up with women being objectified by a woman. This hypersexualisation of everything, and I've seen more and more of it all the time. Just endless need to be seen as sexually attractive, or just attractive in general. This general this obsession with themselves. It's like when we're all young, we like the way we look, or most of us do anyway. For them, I would say, at least for a period of time, or at times. And there's nothing wrong in that. That's just, I think, part of just being young. But I think there's a difference between that and then becoming essentially addicted to your own image, your own projection of yourself online. This endless projection of this very just disingenuous portrait of one's life. There's this constant need to convince people that you are something, that you have something, whether it's money, status, attention, popularity. And I'm just really tired of it, actually. Really sick of it all the time, And the thing that bothers me now is that you just can't go outside without someone that's at least, within an hour or so, a couple of hours, you're going to see somebody, obsessing over themselves in some place that's, nice looking or popular, whatever. It just in general, you just see it all the time now with the little ring lights and, kind of like pseudo-professional setup, semi-professional setup. It's not just because I'm older and I don't have that. Although I suppose maybe there's an element of sort of bitterness and resentment, perhaps. But I think more than anything, it's just this. I just don't understand it. I think it's not so much that I'm bitter because I didn't have that, or because I'm older than these people. But, of course, there's a little bit of resentment towards people younger, because you just don't. When you get past your 20s, like, you realise how quickly they went, and you get jealous of sometimes of seeing people younger, and in that very carefree period of their life. So, of course, you're going to get a little bit jealous because you want to be young again. But I certainly didn't behave like that when I was this constant a million photos, a million videos of oneself in one spot, or just like taking it. There's always that guy in there that always gets getting used. He's found himself in the friend zone, and now is being used to take pictures for his friends, her girls. And he's being taken the absolute piss out of, behind his back, and they're just using him. They're not really his friends. Just and I see so much of that stuff going on as well, and just this thing about, will you take a picture of us? Will you take a picture of me? What? Why are you so obsessed with like this vanity all the time? Like, I mean, how insecure do you have to be to stand in one spot, take 100 photos of yourself, or somebody else take the photos up for you? I just don't understand it. I don't understand. Why are you so obsessed with this perfectionist, like, highly molded image of yourself? And it just shows you that these people are so insecure and insignificant and disempowered, essentially, that they're only, at least in their heads, source of empowerment to them is to keep up with the social media gravy train, keep up with the social media rat race. Got to keep the subscribers, got to keep the likes, got to keep the engagement. And another thing that I've seen a lot of us on YouTube in recent years, this sort of simping thing that's been going on so much on, like, even like in the world of ASMR now. I see some of these, admittedly, good-looking women, very attractive women, using their platforms just for the sake of money raise. Like, they try and sell it as if it's some kind of like a holistic type, thing they're doing for people. And I'm sure that people probably do get some therapeutic elements out of it. But at the back of mind, it is just about the grift. It's about the money. It's about keeping up that presence on social media to keep the money flowing. That's all it is. And I just find it really quite sickening just how toxic people have turned into in the space of about a decade or so. So even 10 years ago, social media wasn't quite as bad as it is today, I would say. Certainly not 15 years ago or 20 years ago. There's always been, different types of people with different types of problems online. There's no doubt that's always existed and always will. But it's this thing of like this monopolized nature of certain things. Like the hypersexuality of women is played out on Instagram, even to some extent on YouTube, certainly on Facebook, but mostly I would say on Instagram and TikTok. Even like so sometimes you come across these things on TikTok of these like late adolescent teens, or I don't know what they are. They're in their late teens or early 20s. I can't tell sometimes, honestly. And you just think, and just this, you know, and you look at all the likes or comments on some of these videos, and you just think, I mean, how have we spiraled into this? You know, it's one thing, you know, if it's illegal, whatever, fair enough. But I mean, if we're now sexualizing essentially kids or teenagers, you know, it's like something's gone severely wrong. And you know, that's what that's the generation that we seem to have now for a lot of young people. It's like this sense of like, you know, I've got to be this hyper glamorized, you know, dolled up. You know, I've got to look as young as I could possibly make myself. You know, there's just this hyper sexualization of people that's, you know, it's like it'd be one thing if it was just like the odd channel here and there, but it's everywhere now. And if it's not that, it's, you know, guys, you know, flexing and trying to make themselves look like they're, you know, Mr. fucking Muscle or something, you know, like a fucking male model of the year. It's like I just get sick of it. I just get really tired of seeing it all, because it's just, I mean, what does that do for younger people? How is in that way? How is it like inspiring in any way? You know, how does it motivate people? Like what? Because all we're essentially doing, we're basically saying it's okay to be mediocre. You know, it's okay to be talentless and have nothing to offer. You know, it's okay to just be shallow and narcissistic and attention seeking, and I mean, even in some ways, like the kind of self-loathing stuff as well, like social online. And I admit I do some of it myself, so you know, I'm not just pointing the finger. You know, I accept that I'm part of the problem, and I accept that in general. I am a part of the problem. I bought into social media and the internet like other people. I bought into, you know, I jumped on getting a smartphone. You know, what was it, 15 years ago now, whatever. You know, I jumped on the bandwagon of joining up to, you know, YouTube and Facebook, Twitter, or X. You know, and you know, so I accept that as much as I complain about some of the things I do, so I am partly responsible for myself. But at least I'm aware of that. You know, that's the difference. Is it's at least I'm willing to accept it and say, yeah, I know that I'm not helping matters. But you know, when you've lived with it for 15 years now, or nearly 20 years, you know, it's not so easy to just give up. Because, you know, essentially many parts of your life are essentially online now, you know. And, you know, letters are a thing of the past, you know. Most people communicate via email now, or Messenger, you know, or, you know, various sort of chat, you know, message, sort of like Skype-based programs or whatever, WebEx and Zoom and all that kind of stuff. Or just various apps, like Line, WebEx, WeChat, what's the other one called? I forgot the name of it now. But you know, there's so many different things now that you know, you just can't really live without, because the world has become so connected because of social media and the internet that, you know, I just can't imagine. I can't really imagine most people living without the internet now. So it's like you can't just like give it up, because like, you know, that's basically the only way to get in touch with most people, you know. So you know, people that say, oh, well, maybe you should just give it up then. It's like, well, you know, it's like, well, the people I need to contact, I can only contact them through Messenger for the most part. So, you know, it's like you can't just, you know, you would find it extremely difficult to go offline forever, I think. WhatsApp was the thing I was trying to find. WhatsApp. You know, Sometimes I just wish I hadn't. But I wish I'd never gotten involved with social media. Wish I hadn't bought into it, even into email. There's essentially a good probably a good nearly almost 20 years of myself online. I started using email, I think, from what I can remember anyway, properly from about 2006, I think. I didn't have a Facebook profile until very late. I think it might have been 2010 actually. It was 09. I think it might have been 2009. I can't remember that. 09, 10 time. And YouTube. I've been watching YouTube for years, probably almost a good 20 years, I reckon. So it's like YouTube's become like really a source of, entertainment and like learning, and it's like you kind of like it's like your own TV, isn't it? Essentially, it's your own set of TV channels. And I can understand why people wanted to jump on that stuff. It was given that TV was kind of becoming outdated, and who watches TV these days for the most part? I mean, we've got a TV in the house, but I don't really watch it very much, unless I'm using it for like exercising or something like that, which is very rare. I admit. Or just sometimes, you just want to watch something on YouTube on a big screen. Sometimes I do that, but sometimes from every now and again I might watch the news on a bit of news, but that's about it really. Everything's online now, isn't it? And it was deliberately pushed towards that. And so we can't really live without the internet now. We can't really live without apps, because we've just become so used to the way that we live. I'm automatic as it for now to just wake up and reach for your phone. The last thing you do at night is to check your phone, or maybe you even keep your phone on overnight, to listen to something that helps you sleep, which is what I sometimes do. So it's not as simple as just disconnecting from the online world as much as you might want to. Trust me, there've been many times where I've just thought, I'm going to delete my Facebook, my YouTube channel, everything that I could possibly think of. I just delete it, so there's nothing left in me, kind of thing. But all that data is being stored somewhere. We know that. So it's not as simple as that. And I don't think necessarily that the internet is. I can't say that it's necessarily a bad thing. I would say there's a lot of really great things about the internet, and that make our life much easier. How many times do we use Google on any given day, or now ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever your AI source of choices. We're becoming more and more and more engrossed in that online world. And I was thinking about this the other day. It all makes sense, really. They're trying to get us addicted to it, because that's where most of the future of jobs are going to be. So I wouldn't really buy into this whole thing of the government wants you to get back into the work office. It's like, even if they do, that's just a sort of stopgap, really, because as the internet will continue to grow and develop and become, essentially a kind of digital. In many ways, it already is like a digital copy of the outside world. There will come a point in the end where you will basically just hardly ever leave your life, leave your house. Maybe that's what they're trying to do eventually. They want to keep the internet moving in more and more addictive ways, so that we eventually, we just basically have everything at our fingertips all the time. We never have to leave the house ever again. We never have to use public transport ever again. We never have to basically do anything ever again. Everything's done inside your own home. Everything's done online, and that's coming. That's definitely coming down the line eventually. especially if the climate continues to get worse and worse over the next couple of decades, or especially within a few centuries anyway. I mean, who knows where the internet will go over that, if it somehow survives the next few decades or whatever. I wouldn't, who knows? I assume it'll become more of a kind of virtual reality kind of thing eventually. It'll be, and I think, my guess probably is that most social media platforms are going to be subscription based at some stage in the coming 5 to 10 years. But you'll have to start paying for them, and that's just a given. We know what kind of cunning, callous, manipulative pieces of shit these tech giants social media giants are. So you can expect that to come down the line soon. I think even Facebook are starting to toy with the idea, and my guess is probably that it'll happen to YouTube first, and then it'll be Facebook. And I don't think they'll be completely free forever, but anyway, that's a whole another topic, isn't it, for another video? But when I first started social media, not social media, sorry. When I first started using the internet, and by internet I basically mean Google, because that's essentially all it really was at one time. That's all you really did. You went on Google or Yahoo. Those were the two main web search engines, and you searched what I wanted to search, and it came up with not a great deal of options. I mean, now you probably, for any given search result, it's like any search, whatever it is you put in the search box, you're going to find at least probably a few, at least probably 20, 30 things will come up, probably, if not more than that, for just anything in general, really. Probably, if it's not that, probably hundreds now. And one time when I started using the internet kind of more regularly, sort of in the early to mid 2000s, this was long before social media became a thing. Well, it became a popular thing in a way. Certainly wasn't what it is today. It was very, very much more of a minimal place, and it wasn't an all-encompassing thing. It wasn't this thing that you walked around with all the time. It wasn't this. It was more of a kind of thing just to kind of meet up. It was used as a way to talk about things, meet people, and meet up with your friends or whatever. But apart from that, it wasn't really anything else. It wasn't this all-encompassing, multi-genre, multi-theme, multi-topic, multi-niche web that it's become now, or series of webs even. It's spiraled into so many different variations of different things over, I'd say, certainly the last 5 to 10 years has really become a lot more niche popularity stuff, which I think is a good thing. But I just think it's becoming, it's just gotten too big. I think it's really just ballooned and kind of, it's just become too clogged. It's just too clogged up now. It just feels like you're being bombarded all the time on YouTube these days. Like, you can't, it's like at one time, it was just, I just think things were that the platform was simpler back in the day. They were simpler, they were a bit more innocent, they hadn't become kind of corrupted yet. And I just think that things, in that, in regards to social media, I don't think things are getting better. We've got AI scattered across all these platforms in some way or other. I mean, if it's not algorithms, it's just like, you have these AI options now on YouTube, some YouTube channels, and you have the fact checking stuff going on X and Facebook, and you have these little chat option AI things where you can sort of summarize the videos or whatever now. So you can see AI is starting to steadily creep in, and become more and more common, and within a few years it'll just be absolutely everywhere, dominate so many different things. It'll be a bit essentially, what will happen to AI is exactly what's happened to social media. It'll just spread out like a virus, won't it? It's like a bandwagon. Eventually more and more people start jumping on it because it becomes popular and accessible and affordable, and so that's how things escalate and get to the point where we have the world we have now. And we've just let things spiral out of control, and I think part of the reason for that is that we seem to lose a sense of morality somewhere along the line. My guess is that it kind of started to spiral post Second World War. That's my kind of overall impression of it, really. I think, I would say probably like the 50s and 60s, really. Well, perhaps the 50s was probably like the last true like conservative kind of stiff upper lip kind of more reserved kind of like generation. I think it's like after from the 60s onwards, everything I think started to spiral out of control. Just the excessive radical feminism and hyper-liberalism movements and sexuality movements, and cultural youthful movements of the 70s and 80s, even into the 90s and probably like early 2000s. And I think a lot of it just led to hyper hedonism, really, just hyper kind of weakening of privacy and keeping sort of having some self-respect and keeping certain private things to yourself, and it just kind of spiraled, I think, into this very toxic, slowly anyway, very dysfunctional, messy world of identity issues. Image-related matters, various aspects of Marxism, communism, socialism creeping in more and more. Certainly from the 60s onwards, I would say it's. I mean, I suppose in many ways, like there were problems. This point here I'm making is more about the UK than the rest of the world, really. But I think really in many ways that winning the war, or if you can even really say that that's true, but helping to contribute towards the end of fascism in Germany or Nazism, whatever. I think that really in many ways actually probably did us a lot of damage, a lot more harm than we realised. Sometimes. I think really that was the very thing that started the decline of the United Kingdom, because it essentially led to this excessive and more accelerating wave of socialism. And I think part of it was, the introduction of the NHS, the introduction of the welfare state. And I just think that gradually over time, like that just became more and more radical, more and more sabotaged. And we just ended up in a world where people wanted to feel liberated and free and empowered. And I think all that really happened is that we went from one side of the pendulum to the other. That's all I think really happened. And I think, and the reason I mention all this stuff, because you might be thinking, well, what's that got to do with social media? Well, I think it does, in the context of the UK at least, have a lot to do with it, because I think these ideals of wokeism or progressivism, in many ways, they've kind of found themselves being played out online. This sense that, well, everyone's an individual, everyone's got something to say, everyone matters, and we're all equal, and all that kind of thing, and just this very naive outlook of the reality of humanity, really. And essentially, that's why people are drawn to it, because it is this very idealistic, this world of I can do anything and get away with it here. I don't have, there's no real sense of morals, I think, online. There's no real sense of etiquette or people being classy and people. And I think that's there was a time when it was common for people to agree to disagree and have sensible, mature, and civilized, normal discussions about really difficult topics that two people might have very different views on. But online now, it's just like it's just not about that anymore. It's not about convincing someone that what you think is holds stronger than the thing that the other person believes. Now it's just about my emotional state. It's about how I feel in this conversation. It's about my sensitivities. It's about my how me being offended, and you shouldn't be able to offend me. That kind of thing. And I just think we've led to we've unintentionally, perhaps, or maybe it was intentionally, I don't know, ended up in this place where people no longer have any self-respect. They don't seem to have any shame. They don't seem to have any sense of pride or class about themselves anymore. Nobody seems to have any sort of element of being reserved, and there's no sense of self-control amongst a lot of people, and not just online, but just in general, like just in society now. Like when I was younger, there was more of a sense of being reserved and kind of being more respectful and patient and being more understanding towards people. But now it just feels like, there's always been unpleasant wankers in the world, in society. You're always going to find that there are people you don't like for whatever reasons, something they said, they did. That's just part of being a human being. But there's a way in which I think people used to handle things years ago that I'm not trying to say my era was better in every way than today. I'm not saying that, but I think in terms of like how people handled themselves in public spaces and discourse was, I think people had a bit more grit in them. I think people had a bit more bite and a bit more, a bit more of a backbone, a bit more an ability to be in control and not let their emotions just ride over everything. And I don't know. I just think it's just become something it shouldn't have been allowed to become. It's all turned into something very, very just hazardous. It's just waste, isn't it? Most social media is just hazardous waste or disposable in some way. And the thing is that like as I said at the beginning of the video about those young men and women behind me in that restaurant. It's like, how many pictures do you need of yourself? It's like, and the thing is that they're not going to look back at most of these pictures, apart from that later on that day or within a few days, and their friends don't care what the pictures are taken of them. They're just trying to keep their friend happy, but deep down they don't care because they're just as engrossed in the same activities as their friend that's getting their picture taken of. So that they're all in it, and that's what bonds them together. That's the thing. It's fun. You see, isn't that funny that the social media is the thing that's bonding people together now in the outside world? Don't you find that ironic? Isn't that weird? This online digital world is the thing that we're all now, supposed to build friendships, and we wonder why people are so shallow and superficial, and just so desperate for validation and attention 24 hours a day. That's why. Because you keep giving it to people. We are part of the problem because we're perpetuating a cycle in which these things are allowed to continue, because we're all feeding, whether we like it or not, into algorithms that keep propping certain channels up, that keep helping them to get more and more clicks and engagement. And I just think it's all just just don't think any of it's really that good for people. I don't think it's good for people's mental health. I don't think it's healthy for people's self-confidence, their self-image, the ability to develop a character and personality over time. I think all it really does, in my opinion, is just I think it keeps people stuck. Maybe that's in some way why society hasn't felt like it's changed for so long. It's because it's that very thing that's keeping society and people in general stagnant. Because have you noticed that? Have you noticed how things have felt so stagnant for so long? I would say for the best part of 15 years, I haven't felt anything really different in society, in the world, I would say. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but it just feels like everything's really kind of been, apart from the pandemic, which it just feels in many ways that like things have kind of just kind of felt the same. Like when I was growing up, there was this sense that like we're heading towards somewhere. We were heading towards something positive, like especially as we led up to the millennium. But even into like the early to mid 2000s, there was this real sense of like the future and a positivity towards it. Now it just feels like it's all like it just feels like everyone's just skeptical about it. Like nobody seems to want the future to come. It's like we're all frightened of because we're how many times per day we're constantly bombarded with news about the climate or the potential impacts of AI or of technology and just all the crap with the government politics. Just so many people being laid off from this company this week. The FTSE's fallen. The pound has weakened by so much. It's like GDP's fallen. Like the economy's grown by 0.5%. It's like I don't know. It just feels like everything's bad news nowadays. It just feels like everything's just so bogged down, and like everyone feels like that. I don't know. Have you noticed that as well? Like how bogged down everybody feels all the time. Like no one seems happy anymore, unless you're over a certain age. But certainly in the youth, even those in middle age now, I'd say even like my parents' generation, nobody really seems to be that happy anymore. Like, of course, I'm not saying everybody, but I'm just saying, just the general vibe I get from like being around people in general is just that there's this flatness to society. There's this very kind of, I don't know, like dulled feeling to it. It feels dull now. It feels, I don't know, it just feels like there's nothing there. It's like, what like, people talk about society and culture all the time. It's like, I don't see much of it anymore, if I'm being honest with you. Like, I don't seem to, and it's not necessarily that things have, I would say, changed too dramatically in public spaces for the last few decades. I don't know, it's just a general like vibe from people. People go about their businesses they always have done, shopping and going here and there, whatever, catching the public transport, and I don't know what people seeing people in the town centre and whatever they're doing, but I just feel that just in general there's this very kind of like dulled, miserable nature to people now. And I think it's pretty obvious. I seem to sound like that person at times. But it's not that so much that I'm miserable. It's more just a case of I just don't know where we are as a society anymore. I don't know what we're supposed to represent anymore. Like I don't know what we're doing. I don't know what we're hoping to achieve with social media. I mean, surely like everything's pretty much been done now, hasn't it? I mean, it's like how far can social media go before it just becomes so oversaturated with just everything that you just can't find anything in the end, and you end up getting to a point where I'd rather just be off it. I'd rather just not bother with it anymore. And I think as I'm getting older, like I definitely don't watch a lot of stuff I used to. In my 20s, like certain things I don't bother with anymore. Certain things I don't find funny, interesting anymore that I used to. And also just the fact there's just such, like I said, there's such an oversaturation of just what every every area of social media now, whether it's with space, whether it's with stuff to do with technology, science-based stuff, philosophy-based stuff, like the whole kind of like pill stuff, black pill movement, music, art, ASMR, white noise, politics, gaming, reviews, reaction stuff. I don't know, it just feels like everything's been categorized, and it's like, well, I don't know what's going to come next, what's the next thing? Because it's always that on social media. What's the next trend? What's the next thing? Yeah, and we go on social media every day, and refreshing our feeds on our respective social media platforms, and you just think like, surely like this can't go on forever. This is. How long can it survive for before people start to get tired of it, bored of it, tired of the constant, reporting of people, the constant flagging or the constant endless bullshit warning systems that YouTube's got in place, or say something on Facebook that Facebook doesn't agree with, so you get banned or blocked from something or whatever. It's like, how long is that going to go on? Because that's only going to continue to widen. They're going to keep widening the goalposts. And that's what it is now. It just feels like we're living in a society now where everything that it was at one time you had more of a chance at, it's just more and more widening of the goalposts now. Especially as you get older as well, it becomes so limiting. It's like it just feels to me like a lot of the time the world is not about. It's not, the world doesn't exist for you if you're over the age of 35, I would say. Not even that, 30. The world's not yours. It doesn't belong to you. It's not about you. It just feels like it really for quite a long time. Even my entire life, I would say that's kind of been the case. It's always been about the youth of today. It's the youth have got all the answers. The youth have got all the mechanisms and resilience, and capabilities and resources for great change. And what at the end of the day, like, what do they really do? It's like, all they do is just end up in systems that were created long before they were born. Just adapted versions of them. That's all it is. They're not really making any real significant, meaningful change in the world. They think they are because they're young and full of their own ego and self-importance, which is what social media is basically. Overblown egos, narcissism, attention-seeking, eternal need, eternal validation, insecurities playing themselves out through projected idealized versions of themselves or their lifestyles. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have the internet. I'm just saying I just think it's kind of become a bit too overblown. I think it's become far too overly popularized, and it's just become too excessive. Really, that's how it feels. It's too in your face now than it used to be. It's too much of this. Listen to me, watch me, look at me, compliment me, validate me. I'm important. Please say it. Please say it. Please say it. Like my video, comment, subscribe. Like my video, comment, subscribe. I do it myself, but I'm not really. Couldn't give a fuck if you do or not. If you want to like it, like it. If you don't, then it doesn't fucking bother me. Couldn't give a shit about likes or comments. To be honest with you, if I cared about comments, I would have kept them on. But I don't, because I don't want the drama. Because that's all it ever turns into when you say anything controversial or taboo or uncomfortable. It just turns into, oh, I don't think you're right. Or I'm the scholarly one here. I'm the educated one. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know anything. Your experiences are invalid because of this. Well, actually, I can prove you that your arguments fall short. That your arguments are wrong or incorrect, or you're misaligned in some way. It's like I don't make my videos like thinking that I know all the answers or that I'm necessarily saying that I'm right about everything. I'm just telling you what I think. And again, there's another part of social media that I hate is this. it's like, I mean, look, there's certainly people online that have a bit more empathy and compassion, and be much more respectful and mature than others. That I will say that. That's, I think, I'm not gonna ignore that fact. But I would say those are the exceptions, really. Most people have got an axe to grind. They have to be fucking right. They have to be seen as the smartest, the cleverest, the most knowledgeable, the most educated. It's like, if you are, I don't fucking care. You know what I mean? It's like, fine, okay, you fucking went to Oxford, you went to Cambridge, you went here, you went there, you're smart, it's like, fucking great, wonderful, well done. Like, I don't give a fuck, quite frankly. It's like, I didn't make this video with a fucking, like, overblown ego, thinking that I'm some kind of, like, professor or something. It's like, I don't think I'm anything. I'm nothing or nobody. I accept that. I'm a nobody. I'm nothing. It's like that thing in Charles Manson said in that interview. I think it was in the late 90s or something. I'm nobody. I'm nobody. What does he say? Like, I'm a bum, I'm a tramp. A box of wine and a sharp razor if you get too close to me. That's me. I can be the most compassionate, empathic, understanding, patient, respectful, kind, generous, nicest possible person you could ever meet. But, you rub me up the wrong way, or you manipulate me, or you lie to me, you try and deceive me, try and take advantage of me in some way, and I find out, and I know, then you'll meet that razor, sharp edge. That's who I am as a person. I don't tolerate bullshit anymore. I don't tolerate people being disingenuous and being disrespectful towards me. I don't tolerate people that just want to feel superior to me, or just want to think that they're cooler or hipper. I just don't tolerate it. It's like, you believe whatever the fuck you want to believe, but at the end of the day, I'm not going to sit there and have you slag me off. I'm not saying that everything I say in every single video I make is 100% spot on, because nobody's 100% spot on about anything. There's always going to be different angles. There's always going to be people that disagree with you. There's always going to be people that say something you didn't think of, or add something to what you said, or take away or someone that just disagrees with you on every single thing you said. It's like, I'm aware of that. I know. I accept that. That's okay. That's great. That's what makes, in many ways, the wonderful, as wonderful a place as it is when it comes to knowledge and different ideas and creativity, and that's what's driven society, isn't it? That's what's driven creativity in various forms of our culture and the ways that we live our lives. But also, it online, it just becomes this battleground for competition. It just becomes this endless need for people they've just got to be right. They've just got to have the last word. They've just got to have the last laugh. They've got to, if it's not taking the piss of being, subtly disrespectful, or being passive aggressive and trying to put you down, but in a way that doesn't sound like that it is. Things like that. People just being, people thinking, generally thinking that they're clever when they're not. It's like, I see through it. I know what you're doing, but I'm just not participating. I'm just not playing along. I'm not interested. I'm only saying this now. I'm just calling it out. It's like, so just in case anybody ever asks why I don't keep my comments on, that's why, because I'm not interested in sitting there for the next 5 hours arguing with you over every single point that you've gone through with a fine tooth comb out of one of my videos. It's like, I can do that myself with enough time. It's like, I don't need you. It's not like, I'm not saying I'm some sort of like thoroughly scholarly, educated, know-it-all. I'm like I said, I'm nothing. I'm nobody. I don't know anything. I didn't go to Oxford or Cambridge. I spent 3.5 years doing my degree online, and that's all I've got. All I've got is a bachelor's degree. I haven't done anything beyond that. I'm not an educated man. I'm not an intelligent man, but I never said I was. I'm not saying I am. Oh, you think you know everything. You think you've got everything figured out. No, I don't. I don't think I've got everything figured out at all. And I'm only saying it because that's what some people think. That's what some people have said to me before. Oh, you think you know it all. You think you've got it all figured out. Oh, because you're in your 30s and you know you're superior, wisdom, know-it-all type. It's like no, I'm not. I didn't say I was wise. I didn't say I was intellectual in any way. I've never said that. I mean, yeah, I probably statistically, compared to some people, I probably am seen as intellectual and, and certainly introspective and a deep thinker. I mean, that's fair to say, but I wouldn't say I was intelligent. Far from it. I'm a fucking idiot. I don't know anything. I can't do anything. I had shit grades at school. I never fucking went on to do anything spectacular with my life. I don't have a business. I haven't, become an entrepreneur or fucking, come some success story out of some, out of poverty or anything. I'm a nobody. I'm a nobody in Bangkok, in Thailand. I've got nothing to say, I suppose, on a lot of things. Just certain topics, certain things that I feel aren't really that relevant to me. They have no interest to me, so I don't have anything to say about them. So I'm not going to make videos about things I don't know anything about. Or I haven't got at least some opinions about, how would I do that? And I kind of get tired of feeling that I have to justify certain things. I just get. It's like it's like if you don't like my video, then it's like what do you expect me to do about it? If you don't like it, then give it a thumbs down if you want. Report it if you want. I don't really care. Like I said, I've got nothing to lose from this. If I get my YouTube channel taken down, it doesn't bother me. I've got all my videos saved anyway. I've got all my well, when I say all my videos, I mean all my musical stuff and white noise stuff, or most of it saved anyway. All of the kind of commentary based stuff, it's like, it doesn't bother me. I don't care. It's like I like to make stuff that's relevant at that time. So whether my video gets taken down 5 or 10 years from now, whatever, it doesn't bother me really, because I'll be older then. So I'll have new things to say. I'll have new insights and new perspectives on things. Probably. But I might probably, if I had to guess, I would say that I just won't be online anymore, or I'll be using it less. I mean, but who knows? I mean, the way AI is going and the way YouTube's exploding now has been for a while. It's, I'll probably be on YouTube online either for the rest of my life, or for at least another 10, 20 years. Because there probably will come a point where I'll get bored of it, and I find that it's becoming more of a too much of a distraction, and because essentially that's what the internet is, isn't it? That's what social media has become. It's an endless source of distraction, an endless source of just echo chambers of one type or another. Very cozy little niche corners of YouTube or Reddit or wherever it is you find them. Maybe it's through Discord or through I don't know, X or whatever. We're all doing it. We're all comfy in our own little spots, and that's human nature, is it? That's what we do. We gravitate towards where we feel the most comfortable, culturally speaking, societally speaking. Whether it's with politics, music, sort of very niche areas of whatever it is that you're into, whatever you like, social commentary, socio-political commentary, let's say, cultural politics, geopolitical, global issues, environment, I don't know, whatever it is that you're into, we all gravitate towards the things that we have an interest in. Either just because we've got something to say, or we want to see if other people think the same things, feel the same ways that we do. And I get it, but really that shouldn't be happening online. That should be happening in the real world. It's like, I understand, people's lives are busy and people don't always have time, especially as they get older. But I think these things should have played out in the real world. not online. You know, like there should be places where you can go and meet people to talk about niche areas or taboo topics and things, rather than it just being some digital space. You know, because it's like, it's not the same thing, is it? You know, I think it'd be that. I think if we took a lot of things offline and put them into the external world, I think a lot of people would be much happier, because you're getting much more out of it. Because it's a very kind of it's a warped experience on being online, because it's not obviously it's not the real world, you know, and it's just you're just staring at a screen. It's like, you know, it's not, you're not getting the full experience of things. And I think that's why society feels dull, is because we've exchanged the real physical world outside for the comfort and convenience of the online space, because it's less threatening to us. It's more comforting. You know, we feel like we might get judged less, criticised less, in some ways, I suppose. And yeah, just generally, it just kind of feels like it's. I think it's become, for some people, it's kind of become a therapeutic thing. For others, I think it's become more of a business. For other people, it's just become a space in which they feel they have to express themselves in one way or another. You know, for me, it's making videos like this, just talking. You know, sometimes it might be on the screen, and other times I'll just have videos like this. And the reason I prefer to have it just like this, with just the camera facing whatever's on the table at the time. I just feel it's more natural, really. You know, I don't know. I just feel that. I just think that we're just living in a very, very false reality now. You know, it doesn't feel real anymore. Everything feels like it's been overdone. I don't think there's really too much left as far as most of the things that we've developed for hundreds of thousands of years have got to give, in my opinion. I think pretty much everything's more or less been done now. And so from this point onward, you know, you're going to see more and more of technology doing different, crazy, unique things that we haven't thought of before, or giving us ideas for things. Because I think that we're in a stagnant era. Society, you know, socially speaking, culturally speaking, politically speaking, in many ways, we're in a very stagnant period of time. Not much seems to be on the horizon. Doesn't seem to be much to be optimistic for about the future. You know, like we just keep getting bombarded with negative news all the time. You know, hurricane here, tornado there, you know, flooding there, drought here. It's like, yeah, well, that's life. That's Earth, isn't it? You know, it's not this perfect ball of rock and water, is it? It's like it's a complex, you know, it's a highly complicated planet that's got all sorts of different things going on in any given region. Of course, you're going to have problems with the climate from time to time. You know, it's like, you know, we're just a fucking one planet in a probably kind of very mediocre solar system, probably, you know, going around the sun. It's like a big deal, you know. It's like, well, what do you expect? I mean, we're lucky that there's anything on the planet at all, let alone life, let alone, you know, technology. And we're so far removed from what it was to be a human being. You know, it's so unbelievably unnatural that you just cannot quite wrap your head around it. You know, like the world that we grew up in, the lives that we see as normal, are so far removed from nature. It's unbelievable. You know, and it's so strange to think about it. We really do live in very unusually, just odd, isn't it? It's odd. It's just very strange. So, you know, I understand that, you know, when people are young and
they find themselves attractive, and so that helps them then with having that confidence then to, you know, give them some self-worth for the sake of competition, especially with women, that is. But there's so many things that like women do nowadays that just, and I've been doing it for a long time, and to just get a free pass for just being, you know, this just sort of like this toxic sense of empowerment, of liberation, of like, you know, women's sexuality, just this endless like misandry, you know, subtle misandry that's there. It's this, and just this sense of like, we can do whatever we want because we're women, because we're sexy and we're attractive, so we can get anything we want by being as manipulative, cunning, deceitful, lying, and backstabbing as we possibly can. You know? And I just got that kind of vibe from those young women that were sat behind me in that restaurant that I've mentioned a few times now. And I just got that vibe from them. They just had that kind of like look about them that, you know, it's sort of like typical kind of like sort of generic sort of like makeup and clothing kind of, you know, that kind of like very early 20s sort of look that you tend to find a lot of now online. Sort of stripped back, minimal, kind of like revealing at the same time, if you get my point. And just, you know, this sense of, you know, this whole thing of like, you know, just think about it, like most, well, not most, but a lot of women, like, you know, they wear sort of low cut kind of like tops, don't they, or whatever. So it's deliberate so that the you know, the tits are basically hanging out to some extent, and then they've got the audacity to try and call you out when you look. It's like, well, but that's the idea, isn't it? That's exactly why you wore it, because you want that attention. And by saying that you don't want that attention, that just reinforces my point. Because now you're getting defensive about it. Because you know I'm right. And you don't want to admit it. Because you want to make it out as if it's some kind of source of empowerment for you. Or I'm liberated because, you know, I can wear what I want. No, it's just what you're doing. It's just acting out what you are. And that is, you know, one side of the human species that craves attention and validation, and uses that as income, and uses that as leverage over men, because men in women's eyes are seeing nothing more than just competition. And that's essentially what I got from those people. There's that endless need for photos. It's this thing of like, it's this comparison trap that a lot of the young women fall into. You know, this need to be better than their competition around them, although they'll never admit that, because otherwise they would never have any friends. But, you know, just that underhanded thing of like, I've got to get the most, you know, sexually revealing pictures, or the most sexually suggestive pictures, or, you know, I've got to get the best possible angle, best possible lighting. And it's really, a lot of it's down to competition with their female friends, or their just women in general. You know, this you know, just carrying around this endless need for, please find me attractive, please tell me I'm sexy, please tell me I'm good looking, please tell me you think that I'm really good looking. But in many ways, they use that, they manipulate men by those things. That they use men through their looks, through their constant insecurities, which essentially is a kind of very superficial form of self-worth, I think. And so it doesn't surprise me, I think, that a lot of women that are attracted to social media as they are, because it's just an extension of who they are, isn't it? It's just a convenient excuse. It's just why wouldn't I do it, you know? And I don't know, I just find it, a lot of it's just extremely unpleasant to just see it play out, that, you know, there's just that superiority that, oh, this is our time, this is our generation. You're in your 30s or 40s or upwards. You don't matter. Whatever you say, however you look, whatever you do, you don't matter, because it's all about me and my friends. It's all about me and my generation. you're outdated. You're a thing of the past. You don't matter anymore. You're on the scrap heap now. You're past your sexual peak. You're past your attractiveness peak. And even if that's true, why did they have this like superiority complex thing of like, well, the world's only about them. The world revolves around them because they're young and pretty, And that's the thing. I think what I've realised here is that a lot of these younger people, even if I got to know them obviously I would want, because I said I'd be fucking seeing this a frequent, a 35-year-old hanging out with someone that's in the early to mid 20s. That's not a good look, is it? Really, let's face it. Let's be honest about it. But even if I hypothetically got to know these people, like I probably wouldn't end up liking them anyway. I had a student here a few years ago. I think it was just before the pandemic started, and she was in her early 20s, and I was in my I've been I think I was about 30 or something, 31. And even then, I just kind of felt uncomfortable with the whole thing because, like, I don't know what it is. It's just this sense of like, oh, well, if you're a guy of a certain age and you're seen or you're around someone that's younger than you, then somehow you feel like a creep. You feel like this is somehow inappropriate, even though it's not. But it's just that general sort of pervasive vibe of like, oh, you shouldn't be looking at her in that way. It's like, even though you're not looking at her in any awkward way, it's like. And it's just that, oh, she knows that you find her attractive and all this kind of just this really ugly, messy anxiety stuff all the time. And I get tired of that shit as well. And the thing is, they love all that shit. They love all that attention stuff. They love all that thing of shoving it in your face and have feeling that they've got some superior control and power over you. They love all that shit. You see, women are attracted to toxicity. Women are attracted to narcissism. That's why so many adverts on the TV are aimed at women, because they're more vulnerable to it. They're more susceptible to being manipulated, and so they become manipulative because of it. And I think social media is playing into that now. It's basically justifying, saying it's okay to be manipulated because of this, and this. It's okay to act like an absolute wanker of a person. As long as you get this, as long as so it just becomes this as like a trade-off thing. It's if you want to be the biggest star on social media, you've got to be able to sacrifice a certain part of your morality, a certain part of your standards, your boundaries. Even if most of these people don't really have any to begin with, but yeah, I don't know. It's just that sense of a complete lack of boundaries now in public spaces. Anywhere you go, that's a kind of a bit of a touristy place. You're always going to get those people that look at you as if you haven't got some right to, spend a few seconds or a couple of minutes in that spot. It's always this thing of, it's like, come on, hurry up, move out the way. It's like, it doesn't matter about you. It matters about me and my Instagram followers. It matters about how much money I'm going to be raking at the end of the month, that kind of thing. I just find it really sick. That's all I can say about the whole lot of it. I just find it unpleasant. People are much more impolite than they used to be. People are completely lacking in boundaries and standards and self-respect and self-control now. And I just feel really that the younger generations now, I just found that they're completely lost. They've just bought into something that they had no right to really be a part of. They had no right to try and claim as their own, but yet they have, they've dominated these spaces, especially women with all this pornography stuff on X and you see nowadays, and dominating Instagram pretty much. And generally, even like when I used to watch like Boiler Room years ago. Like you always saw them. You always saw those, just the alpha female types. The ones that have got to be front and center of the stage. They've got to be the ones getting the attention of the DJ. They've got to be at the front. They've got to be seen as the best. And also with guys as well, this competition to be seen as the best dancer because they think they have this delusional idea that women are going to be attracted to the way that they dance or something. It's just fucking ridiculous. I mean, I don't know. I just don't understand the youth. They don't. There was a time when you could just go out somewhere and just enjoy it for what it was, the experience of just being present in that place at that time. Maybe you take a couple of photos if you had a camera phone with you, or if you had an actual camera with you, but that was about it. It never used to be, I would say even, certainly like 15, 20 years ago, it didn't used to be this thing it is now. It's just been gradually getting worse over the years. Steadily, it's just been getting progressively more and more narcissistic, and just people are so temperamental as well these days. It's like you never know where you stand. People just always seem on edge. People always seem to be, like I said before, very just skeptical of everything you're doing. Especially as you get older as well, I found even that plays even more into it, especially when you're around younger women or just women in general. It's this kind of like superiority complex thing that they all kind of exhibit. It's like, I don't know, just this very horrible, nasty vibe I get from a lot of women, more so women than men, I would say. Again, of course, it's not everybody. There are plenty of decent, nice women out there. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying in general, based on my observations, I think in many ways, many women, not all, but many, are becoming far more narcissistic and toxic than men are, I think. But I think, having said that, that there is this endless thing even on YouTube now, of this alpha male projection thing of like, just one form of flexing or another. If it's not like showcasing their fucking like buffed up biceps or whatever, it's it's like, how much money can I make today? This endless competitive edge. But in some ways, I get it. Like, I think it's like if you're doing something practical and useful, whatever, it's like I can kind of see that. I can almost kind of forgive it to some extent. But when it's just vanity for vanity's sake, it's like I just don't get it. I just don't get it, man. That's all I can say. I just don't fucking get it. I mean, you do you, whatever, but don't expect there not to be people that look upon you with disdain and with contempt for you. And I didn't hate those people that they're taking up all the space for however long it was. But it's just when people are just rude and like just so entitled and so they just have these toxic expectations of other people. They expect you to do certain things because they think that you know what they want. It's like, I don't fucking know anything about you. I've never met you, never talked to you before. It's like, how the fuck am I? I don't know what you want to do. It's like if you want me to move, then you can just ask politely, and I'd be more than happy to move for it. But it's the fact that they just give you that like really disgusting, that sort of like eye rolls in the head kind of like vibe. It's like this, and just the way they look at you and look you up and down, judging you there on the spot, like already making criticisms of you, like already making assumptions about you because you're not doing something that they want you to do, or not doing something they don't want you to do. I just think, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm just getting fucking old and miserable and too bloody self-reflective these days, and too, reminiscent and too critical of the outside world and what's going on. I don't know, but it's just fucking bizarre, man. It's a bizarre, bizarre world we live in these days. It really is.